Whenever you're ready, just lean back, get comfortable, close your eyes, and then connect your thoughts to your inner world. Connect your thoughts to your breathing, connect your thoughts to your body. That's right. As you connect with your breathing, you can feel how your body's listening as you ask it for deep breaths, and you ask it for relaxation, and you ask it for some comfort. The thoughts in your head really do affect how you feel in your body, which is why it's so important to choose your thoughts, to suspend the inner critic or fault finder, to further the thoughts that think, I can do it. If others can, I can. And to further those thoughts that recognize your qualities, your talents, your skills, your merits, because that is what you're going to achieve with. Despite everything you don't have, there's so much you do have to succeed with. Now we're going to go through that process of intentional relaxation to further a feeling of relaxation and inward focus. Bring your attention up to the top of your head and imagine there's a huge wave of relaxation, softening the muscles of your forehead and the muscles of your eyebrows and the muscles of your eyelids. Then send that softness down your face to your cheeks and the muscles around your mouth and your jaw. Give particular attention to the muscles of your jaw, because for the duration of this session, they have no work to do. Those muscles can become very soft, very relaxed, very loose. Then send that looseness and softness down to the muscles of your neck, and they too have nothing to do and nothing to accomplish here. The muscles of your neck can become very soft and loose and comfortable. And then send the softness further down into your shoulders. Then all the way down through the muscles of your back, all the way down the broad muscles of your upper back, down into the muscles of your lower back. Then feel that softness spread from your shoulders down your arms, down your biceps and triceps, into your forearms, into your wrists, and all of the way down into your hands and your fingers. Then spread the softness down into the muscles of your hips, and all of the way down into your legs, through the biggest muscles of your legs, down past your knees, down through your calves, all of the way down to the bottoms of your feet. And from head to toe, you've given your body a positive witness. You can see yourself. You can understand yourself. You can understand yourself wholly and entirely. You know the journey that you've taken to reach this point in your life. You know the journey you've taken to have learned everything you've learned. You know the substance you're made of. You also know that everything you're capable of doing today is not something you're born with, but something you learned over time. So everything you're going to be capable of doing in the future is not something that you were born with. It's going to be something that you're learning over time. Even being able to turn inwardly and relax is not always a given, but you've been learning how to turn inwardly, how to relax, how to use this mind-body connection to give your body a constant source of relaxation and reassurance, of love, encouragement, and support. And that's the proper way to talk to a human being. Now, I know that you have this inner critic, this inner fault-finding, cynical, pessimistic voice that distracts you from your qualities, your talents, your skills, your successes. But your inner critic is not a truth teller. It's not your conscience. It has no taste. You have little use for a fault finder when you're trying to do something new, when you're trying to master something new. So we're going to construct a jail for your inner critic. We're labeling it devil's advocate, do not trust, not your conscience, not a truth teller, has no taste. Imagine you can take that source of negativity and pessimism, and it belongs in that prison correctly labeled as a devil's advocate. That leaves much more room in your mind for your thoughts that love you and what you're learning. You have a lot of use for thoughts that can appreciate you and the work you're doing and everything that you're learning. Love for the subject matter is how you have learned everything you've learned in a self-directed way. Love for the subject matter and love for the student will have you learn everything else you're going to be learning for the rest of your life. It's possible that one day it's like 2035 and they've invented a flying car and you're going to be licensed to fly a flying car. It's not something you were born knowing how to do, but it's something that in that future they're going to have a process to teach you how to do. The things that you're learning today are not innate for anyone who's a master of that thing. Everyone who's become masterful at this thing has gotten there through training, through practice, through rehearsal. So when you're going through your process of learning and practice and rehearsal, you're doing as the successful do. More and more you can credit yourself for the journey and your progress without faulting yourself for where you fall short of perfect, or where you don't compare with someone who's been doing this thing for 10, 20, or 30 years. They were once in your shoes. They were once a total newbie at the activity. And because they persisted, a few years became many more years. And now they're a role model for you. You'll be a future role model for anyone who's just entering the field that you're in or the hobby that you have. And love for the subject matter and for the student is how we learn the things that we learn. Maybe it used to be it was a science teacher or an English teacher who loved the subject matter and loved it enough that they wanted to teach their students how to appreciate science or literature the way that they did. These days, in adulthood, you're choosing your own courses of study. You'll find within yourself love for the subject matter and love for the student. Even if you're already a professional at the thing you're doing, it means that with no teacher to tell you you're doing well, you must be the one to be telling you that you're doing well. Especially if you work independently or you study independently, with no one above you to say, hey, good work, well done, keep that up, A+. You must be the one to recognize, hey, you did well there, good work, well done, A+. No harsher thought than, next time I'll do it a different way, is needed where you see room for improvement. We don't even berate dogs. We don't even rub their nose in a mess. When they make a mess, we just teach them, do it over here, please. And then, good dog. Now, you're not going to treat yourself worse than a dog. If you do the human equivalent of making a mess, you can think, okay, well, I'm going to do it some other way. And then when you do the other way, you get to think to yourself, I did all right. Or even I did well. I'll keep up that good work. And then you're emulating your best teachers, not the worst ones. And then you're being like a good parent, not like a bad parent. And then you aren't treating yourself worse than a dog. The kind of distress that came from hearing so much inner criticism without inner praise goes away when we jail the inner critic. And we make much, much more room to recognize the things we will repeat in the future and the things that are going well and the progress that we've made. Recognizing what you've got helps you to feel like the real deal at this phase in your learning and this phase in your life and this phase in your development. You might know the story of Robert Johnson, the blues guitarist who was said to have sold his soul to the devil for guitar skills. But what actually happened, I'm sure, is he just hid himself away and practiced a lot. He played a lot of guitar. He practiced his scales. He memorized his chords. He developed his calluses. And then when he emerged to play in public, because people couldn't see the practice, but they saw the result of the practice, they assumed he sold his soul to the devil, and he didn't. He just practiced. That's how you get good at anything. Through practice, rehearsal, learning, incrementally, until people are so amazed they think you've sold your soul to the devil. More and more, you can credit yourself for the progress you've made in all your endeavors. It is inevitable when you keep learning, you keep rehearsing, you keep practicing, that you are going to get better and better and better at the thing you're doing. When we run a marathon thinking, if I keep going forward, I'm going to cross that finish line. We don't run the marathon thinking, but I'm not across yet. But I'm not across yet. I haven't won yet. Your body listens to the signals you send it to it. Recognizing where you've gotten things right. Recognizing what you'll repeat more of in the future. Recognizing the progress you've made helps you to stay in the race, to keep up the pace, so that inevitably you cross your finish lines. You achieve what you set out to achieve, and to those who didn't see the hard work, they might think you were born with it, but just like Robert Johnson, you just practiced a lot. You learned a lot. You got through the tough parts that wannabes would be dissuaded by. The right thought is, yes, I can. Your inner critic was the biggest source of the thought of, well, no, you can't. Here's why. But that's why we've jailed away your inner critic. In that container we've labeled devil's advocate. And we're making much more room for thoughts that tell you, I believe in you. I know you can do it. I know I can do it. In your own head and heart, you're going to be your own biggest source of stability and validation and encouragement. Because we're all inspired by encouragement. And in adulthood, very few people, if anyone, even have the right to tell you, good work, well done. It's actually the preferable situation if your friends and your family would be slightly embarrassed praising you regularly. Instead, they understand that you can be self-motivated, self-respecting, self-affirming, self-validating. You can also understand that you get to be self-affirming, self-validating, self-respecting. In adult life, these things don't make you self-congratulatory if the people around you aren't praising your progress every day. Sometimes people around you might be outer critics. If they're cynical, if they're pessimistic, if they've given up, sometimes they become outer critics on top of your inner critic. There's got to be someone telling you that you can do it, that you can achieve the goals you've set your mind on. And that person is going to be you. You're the one who can see where your glass is half full. You're the one who can see all that you've got. When you sum up all that you have today, even in a difficult field of endeavor, you can find much more today than this day 5 years ago, or this day 20 years ago. That's what you have to further your progress. In guitar, if you have your calluses, you know some of your scales and all the basic chords. You are far ahead of how you had been before you picked up a guitar, and that's the point of comparison, not your favorite guitarist. You can relinquish thoughts and prepare for bad things to happen. You can relinquish thoughts and prepare for failure or defeat when you have no plans for those things to happen. You have plans to get better and better at everything that you do until everyone else is saying that you're the real deal. I know that you have memories of when you first started doing this thing. You have your memories of childhood, and those past years you'll never have to live in again. You're not a child acting like an adult. You're not a total beginner acting like the real deal. You're an adult with your present number of years of experience, acting like someone with your present number of years of experience. When that number of years of experience would make anyone else the real deal. You are too. The glass is half full. We can only make meals with ingredients we have, but you sum up the ingredients you have in your kitchen, and there are many delicious, healthy meals you can make. when you've determined the key for your song. There are only so many notes you can play that are on key, but there are infinite songs you could play that are on key. When you write a book in the English language, there are only so many words in the English language, but you start summing up your knowledge of the English language, and there are infinite books that you can write. The glass is half full. That's where you find the substance to do your work with. Sometimes you might even have stood in a perfectly well-stocked kitchen asking, why didn't I buy this spice? Why didn't I buy a fresh thing at the market that I saw? But all that could've, would've, should've thinking is a distraction from summing up what you've got and starting to cook. When you sum up all that you have in your career and your interests and your hobbies, there's enough. There's enough to do good enough work for this stage of your career or hobbies. The point of comparison is how you were even a year ago, let alone 5 or 20. It's not to compare yourself with someone who's been doing this for 20 years, because time moves in one direction. Keep up the good work. Eventually, you've done this for 20 years. And you're going to know you didn't sell your soul to the devil. You just practiced. You just stuck with it. More and more, you can feel that you're a perfectly fine lifelong learner, rather than inferior to the masters. Even the masters are not perfect. The master painter must trust their own eye and decide, do I like the work? Do I like the painting? And the other masters might have decided to draw the perspectives differently. The other masters might have chosen different colors. Other masters would have self-expressed differently. But any master's work is a masterpiece. Relative to your peers, you are also the real deal. The genuine article, bona fide. A full summation of all that you know, all you're capable of, all that you can draw upon for what you're doing, sums up to roughly equivalent with anyone else who's put in your degree of learning and practice. Now, way back when you were 5 years old, you didn't know everything, but you were perfectly fine and perfectly lovable as a 5-year-old. At 15, you had more. You didn't have everything an adult has, but at 15, you were perfectly fine and perfectly lovable as a 15-year-old. At 25, 35, 45, 85, 95, you're still not perfect, but you don't have to be, because you're perfectly fine for these ages of your life. And if one day you're 95 and you're still not perfect and you still don't know everything and you still can't shred like Satriani, then, well, you're permitted to be at your current level of skill and knowledge and celebrate what you have learned, when perfection is an absolutely unachievable goal. Then you might as well not wait before you celebrate what you have learned and what you can do and the skills you have developed and the talent you have realized. We'd even praise a 6-year-old showing us their finger painting, not because it'll be hung in a gallery, but because, it's pretty good for a 6-year-old. You can praise yourself for your level of skill today. You can praise yourself for the work you're doing, so you keep it up. so that you stay in the race, so that 5, 10 years later, you've actually been practicing 5 or 10 years. And that's how eventually people think, wow, how did they do it? How did they know all of that? When you compare the complexity of your journey with the complexity of any other journey, you hold up apples to apples. If you compare what others think of you on the outside with someone of roughly your experience and what others think of them on the outside, you hold up oranges to oranges. But let's be done with the apples to oranges comparison between you practicing and someone else's final, published, edited, released work. That's how you got people thinking Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil. Because they didn't see the hard parts where he practiced a lot. Now, you've been seeing the hard parts where you practice a lot, where you learn a lot, where you might even make mistakes. If you compare that with how anyone else at your level of learning practices and makes mistakes, you hold up. You're good enough. Even pianists or guitarists who have played for years will still practice their scales. So when you've been learning something and you're still doing the basics, you're establishing the fundamentals. Very few people even have the authority to be telling you that you're doing well. Even as I speak to you, I have to appeal to the authority that you possess over yourself for the thought to register in the body. But if you're hearing me say it, and in your mind you agree with it, then it registers in the body that you're the real deal. Not because you're perfect, not because you compare with every master, but because you're roughly where you ought to be for the level of practice and education and the time you've put into the endeavor that you already have. It's certainly within the realm of what's realistic for a human being. Imagining too much for yourself would take you out of that realm, and also underestimating yourself takes you out of that realm. When you estimate your capabilities as those of a human being, you're going to be in the right ballpark. And when people around you treat you seriously, they don't give you constant praise. In your own head and heart, you must do that job. It doesn't mean you have to praise everything. It just means you're going to see the merits of what you're doing and recognize what you're going to do more of as you inch your way toward mastery. Even when you make mistakes, no harsher thought than, whoops, that didn't work, let me try it a different way, are needed. You might have seen performers on stage laugh off their mistakes, or they'll miss a note and they just keep playing like nothing happened and no one notices. And that's because, apples to apples, no one's perfect. Your outward expression of your skills and talents matched up with the outward expression of someone's skills and talents who started at roughly the same time as you, that's going to hold up apples to apples. Your inward journey, the hidden practice that no one sees, compared with anyone else's journey, and the practice that no one sees, that holds up oranges to oranges. But let's be done with the totally unfair apples to oranges comparison between someone else's polished, final released work and the complexity of your journey, or the mastery someone has achieved after 20 years versus what you've achieved after 2. You too can be someone who's stuck with something for 20 years. You could be someone showing such great and well-developed talent that others secretly believe you must have had some supernatural help. But actually, even the best guitarists, pianists whose fingers move like they're a blur, the most expressive poets, the greatest engineers, they weren't born knowing any of this. They developed their talents. They developed their skills. They practiced a lot. You can practice a lot too. You're the real deal for this phase you're in right now. When you were a total beginner, you were the real deal as a total beginner. When you're intermediate, you're the real deal as an intermediate. When you're advanced, you're the real deal. When you're a master at something, you're the real deal as a master. Learning anything that's complex enough that it merits study will take years, in some endeavors, decades. It means that to even reach the point where you've mastered something for decades, you're going to be the one thinking, I'm doing well. I'm going to keep this up. And yes, sometimes you make mistakes, and that's where the inner critic belongs in jail. And you're going to think, well, I'm not going to do that again. Let me try to figure out what am I going to do next time I encounter something like this. If that doesn't sound good to my ear, if that doesn't look good to my eye, then what does please my ear? What does please my eye? More and more you can emulate your better teachers and better parents in your own head and heart, because they got the best from you. The best science teachers, they love science, they love the correct answers. They don't have to comment too much on the incorrect ones, because if they just comment on the correct answers, eventually everyone gets the answers correct. And then your favorite art or music or literature teachers, they can give you some guidelines, but they would actually just listen to your interpretations. They recognize in art and the humanities, there are differing opinions, and there's no perfect art. There's no scientific art or literature. In these complex endeavors, each person must ask themselves, do I like it? Do I like the way I sound? Do I like what I've created? Does it please me? Does it fit my taste? And when the answer is yes, then the person who knows your work best has weighed in, and all other opinions come from those who don't know your work as well. More and more, you can feel like the real deal already. It doesn't mean you're comparable with every master, but so what? The masters are not comparable with each other. It means you're on a lifelong journey of learning a little bit more. Every day you practice the things you practice. You're the real deal there. Also, apples to apples and oranges to oranges, you hold up. Be done with the false comparison between your inner world and someone else's outer expression, or your lengthy journey and then someone toward the end of their career, or at least past the phase of mastery. You didn't have to wait for perfection before recognizing the progress you've made. A marathoner running the race thinking, I can do it, one foot in front of the other, I'm going to cross the finish line, gets themselves across a finish line. A different marathoner thinking, I'm not done yet, I haven't crossed yet, would sap all their strength from their heart and body within the first few miles. You're going to be like the first marathoner because you know your thoughts affect how you feel in your body. The thought of, I can do it, I'm doing it, here's where I'm a winner, next time I'll make these tweaks. These kinds of thoughts keep you in the race, in the game, in the craft. And you'll still be self-correcting. I mean, if a dog makes a mess, we can teach them where they have to go. If a kid gets an incorrect answer on a science test, we don't have to make a show of it. We just tell them, well, here's the correct answer. And little commentary is needed on the incorrect answer. If you play a note and it doesn't sound right to you, you search for the right note and it sounds right to you, and then you just play that note when you play the song again. It's why your inner critic belongs in a jail. It's kind of like an abuser in a classroom or a household. You have no use for an incessant fault finder in your psyche. Actual critics, music critics, art critics, literary critics, have appreciation for the subject matter and even specifically the genre. Your inner critic was like a rube going around the gallery saying, well, my 5-year-old could have splattered paint like this Jackson Pollock painting. Actual criticism that has merit can appreciate what was attempted. Actual criticism that has merit can appreciate art and beauty and the context in which a piece was created. That's not your inner critic. When you factor in what you attempt, when you factor in the context in which you're doing the work that you're doing, when you're factoring in, is this your early work, is this mid-career work, or is this late career work, then no fault finding is needed. You can keep that thought of, I can do it. Now, I'll have you feel all of this sink in. With your heart and mind, with every cell. Accept the truths you've been hearing and the words you've been hearing me speak. This is a world in which you can encourage yourself and then see that, yes, you can. This is a world in which you don't have to wait for an outside authority to tell you you've done well if your own eye or ear decides you've done well. This is a world in which you don't have to compare yourself with the finest examples of the craft. You can compare yourself with how you'd done last year, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and certainly you've gotten better at everything you've practiced. So let it all sink in. As I count you up, begin to bring your attention outward and feel energy return with every count. 1. Become aware of your body on the cushions. Become aware of every breath, bringing more and more energy into your system. 2, and then become aware of how the music fades. Become aware of how good you feel. Become aware of how your outlook includes you being there for you. With no harsher thought than, that didn't work. Well, let me try things a different way next time. And then when you get it right, you're going to be there to tell you, hey, I like that. I'm going to do more of that. This is how we learn. This is how we all learn. And you're on a process of learning. Even the masters keep learning. But the masters don't have to think they're imposters. They actually do have as many years in their craft as they've put in. You have as many years or months or days as you've put in. You're the real deal for this phase of your learning. 3, then become more aware, more alert to your senses and surroundings and to everything else going on around you. 4, then feel a huge wave of energy go all the way up to the very top of your head, making you feel refreshed, making you feel energized, making you feel clearer in every way, knowing that you've made some changes in perspective here, and those happen rather instantaneously. And 5, let it all sink in, and then open your eyes to return fully back to the room out.